Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the West Fargo City Commission meeting for Tuesday, September 8th. I'd ask that you please join me for a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First order of business this evening is to approve the order of the agenda. I have several amendments that I'd like the public to note. On the consent agenda, there has been an item I added to it. It was inadvertently left off, and the item I is to have a request for public liquor consumption at the 2020 West Fest parade and activities. So that's item I on the consent agenda. Also on the regular agenda, we're going to move item number 7 to 9A, right just ahead of 10. And the reason being is both of those items are tied together, and it just makes sense to have the discussion contiguous with those. So again, item 7 will move to 9A. And item I is an addition for a request for public liquor consumption at the West Fest activities.
I'll make a motion to approve the order of the minutes.
Thank you.
Or the agenda,
The agenda. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Simmons moves. Commissioner George seconds to approve the order of the agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next order of business is item C, the approval of the minutes of the August 17th, 2020 City Commission meeting. They have been distributed. They are on pages 3 through 6.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Jurdevig. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of August 17th, 2020. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next order of business is the building permits. The building permits have been distributed. Our folks in planning and zoning and permitting have been very, very busy. It's a great report. Commissioners, do you have any questions of inspections or planning and zoning with regard to the building permit report?
Other than one comment, Mayor?
Please, Commissioner Simmons.
Thank you. For all the years I've been here, I don't think I recall this many pages of buildings, so great job to everybody. You're some busy beavers out there. Appreciate our developers and builders as well, because this is huge for us right now during this time. So, thank you all.
Great point.
Make the motion to approve.
Commissioner Olson moves. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Jurdevig seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the building permit as distributed for September 8th, 2020. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next order of business is the consent agenda. We have items A through I, reminding you that we have an amendment with a request for West Fest activities for public liquor consumption on the streets of for the city of West Fargo.
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner George seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda with the amendment as distributed. Is there any discussion? All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Moving on to the regular agenda. The first order of business is the swearing in of the City of West Fargo Police Chief, Dennis Otterness. I'd invite Chief Otterness to come up front and certainly bring his family with him if he so chooses. I'd like to welcome Tricia, his wife, his daughter Nicole, and his son Nathan. Also, he has a brother in the crowd, and he has mom and dad in the crowd. So. Chief, if you just repeat what I say.
I will.
I, Dennis Otterness,
I, Dennis Otterness,
having been duly appointed a police officer for the city of West Fargo,
having been duly appointed a police officer for the city of West Fargo,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States
that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States
and the state of North Dakota.
and the state of North Dakota.
I will faithfully and impartially,
I will faithfully and impartially,
to do my best abilities,
to my best abilities,
perform the duties of said office
perform the duties of said office
according to law,
according to law,
that I will constantly strive to achieve
that I will constantly strive to achieve
those objectives and ideals stated,
those objectives and ideals stated,
dedicating myself to my chosen profession,
dedicating myself to my chosen profession,
law enforcement.
law enforcement.
So help me God.
So help me God.
It is my pleasure to present Tricia with Dennis Otterson's badge 103. And we'd ask Tricia to please put that on the chief. If I can get the bag open. Good Lord.
It's a good one.
Yeah, good security.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Congratulations to you and your family.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to acknowledge all the West Fargo PD officers that are in the crowd, please. Any of you sitting, all stand, please. Meet your new chief. Good to have you with us this evening. Thank you. The next order of business is that Mr. Larson and I, we're going to have you sign something. I bet I left my pen up there. And I have to have Jim notarize this for us. So, thank you, Mark. So again, this is another oath of your agreement of doing it. If you'd like to read it, you're welcome to do that. But it's basically exactly what I just said. This will all make it all legal and
There you go.
thank you. Again, Chief,
Thank you very much.
to you and your family, and your extended family, mom and dad that are here, your brother, congratulations again. It's great to have you
Very
here.
much, Mayor.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all, your officers. Before we move on, I would also like to again thank all the West Fargo PD officers, and I'd also like Jerry, Mr. Boyer, Chief, Deputy Chief Boyer, could I have you step up front, please? Dennis, would you join him? While we welcome Dennis Otterness as the new Chief of Police for the City of West Fargo and our department tonight, I wanted to take an opportunity to show my appreciation to Assistant Chief Jerry Boyer for filling in as our interim chief for close to 6 months. Without hesitation, Assistant Chief Boyer filled the role of interim chief and continued to move the West Fargo Police Department forward during these undeniably unique times. Boyer continued to build relationships with the community and kept our city and officers safe during these very trying times. His dedication has been unwavering, and it shows the commitment he has for the department and speaks volume to his character. The commissioners and I want to say thank you again. You represent the best of the West Fargo Police Department and are key in our continued designation as the safest city in North Dakota. We are lucky to have you. Thank you for your assistance, Assistant Chief Boyer. Thank you.
Thank you.
My apologies. The next order of business is item number 2. We have a public hearing and first reading of rezoning of lots 11 through 12, 19 through 20, and 22 through 31, Block 1. Lots 2 through 22, Block 2, and all the Block 3 of Burlington Addition, and all the Burlington 4th Edition of the City of West Fargo. We'll call on Head of Planning and Zoning, Mr. Tim Soberg.
Thank you, Mr. President, Commission. We have a public hearing scheduled tonight. First reading is proposed for a portion of Burlington Addition. This is a portion of a larger PUD. Within this portion, there's single-family residential development that has occurred, as well as 1- and 2-family dwellings, twin homes. And unfortunately, when we reviewed for a recent proposed home in there, we determined that the property was zoned PUD, but there was no detailed development plans. The PUD requires conceptual plans are approved, and then detailed development plans are approved. In this case, the residential portion of this, the single-family residential, did not have detailed development plans. However, builders had been submitting using the R1A district standards, and over the past 5 years, there hasn't been a new home there. It's been all before that, and those buildings were then just approved, given that the R1A district standard is the most restrictive of all the one-family zoning districts, and so they were approved. With a call that we received, quickly looked at it, determined that those shouldn't have been approved, and we should have done detailed development plans. As I looked at it, I realized probably the easiest way to do it is just to zone them to R1A, and that's what they've been building to this date. All the homes within there meet that R1A district standard, so it's really the simplest way to do it. It will be the easiest way for people to then build on the remaining homes in there and do additions or accessory structures, et cetera, to their homes. It's also something that if you're a mortgage company and you're reviewing a mortgage refinance or for a new home in this property, the straight zoning is always a lot easier than a PUD. So what we're proposing is rezone all of that PUD to R1A, and then the homes, or the properties that have the twin homes on them to R1, which allow for 1- and 2-family zoning. So this is consistent with the comp plan, really no harm, no foul, hopefully, but we're going to clean it up with this. So tonight, a public hearing is scheduled. I'd suggest a first reading. We've had no negative comments to date, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Soberg. Are there questions, Mr. Soberg?
I have one
Commissioner Olson.
question, Tim. Are there homes already built there?
Yes, yes, there are. And unbelievably, it's not been caught to this point. I think the mortgage crisis that has increased the underwriting of mortgages hit after most of these were built, and so there just hasn't been a lot of building in this area since that time. And now there's some interest in some of the empty lots, so we caught it now.
We're primarily concerned about the lots in the yellow.
The lots in the yellow and blue are what I'm proposing to be changed to. The other map that I have up shows what the current zoning is, and that's all PUD. This is also a result of planning's increased oversight on building inspections. So now we're catching everything as it comes in residential in addition to commercial. So.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions? Mr. Soberg from the Commission?
I'd make a motion to approve.
One moment, please, Mandy. We have to go into a public hearing, so that's fine. All right, we'll close the regular agenda, and we'll move into the public hearing of the first reading of rezoning lots 11 through 12, 19 through 20, and 22 through 31, Block 1. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak to this issue? Is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak to this issue? Is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak to this issue? Hearing none. Public hearing is closed. We are back in the regular agenda. Commissioners, additional questions for Mr. Solberg? Or what is your pleasure?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner George. It's been moved to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Jurdevig, it's been moved and seconded to accept the first reading of rezoning lots 11 through 12, 19 through 20, and 22 through 31 of Block 1, Block 2, and Block 3, and the Burlington addition. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next order of business is item number 3 on the regular agenda, and that's Westview 4th Edition, PUD amendment and final plat approval. Mr. Solberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. Commissioners, Westview 4th is a proposed change to what was previously a conceptual plan for the PUD of Westview 3rd. Westview 3rd Edition came in when low-income housing tax project came in for this multifamily project, which is just north of 40th Avenue and to the east of 4th Street. That property was developed and they left this vacant piece of land. At the time, there was discussion about commercial or neighborhood commercial going on in this area. That was based on our 2008 comprehensive plan that sort of showed a need for increased commercial development within this residential area. At the time, there was a little bit of pushback and not really a whole lot of planning for it, so they just left it as a concept. And then today we've had a developer come forward with a application to provide 22 commercial condo lots. The condo term is used because they share the drive area in there. They propose a private drive and share that kind of common space, but each one of them is unto itself with a development of its own. As we reviewed this project, I think the staff had the biggest concern with how we serve the project. Our Public Works Engineering had some concerns on that. We worked through that to get to a point where we provided an access easement within there for access for the public to go in and out, but also for the cities to have sewer and water provided to each lot. The compatibility with the uses around there is something that was also discussed. This has been a while since it's been at Planning Commission. It was back in May during when we were kind of working from home. The neighborhood expressed some concern with that. They were appeased by the developer in that they provided some lighting standards to reduce the amount of lighting that might come out of that. What they're proposing is to have commercial office park standards for lighting. That reduces the amount of sort of commercial flash that's going toward the neighborhood to the south. Also, our sign code requires that any sign that be flashing, like an electronic message center or lit, that faces a residential district would be a conditional use permit. So if any signs were proposed in that need, that there'd be a conditional use permit for that review. Beyond that, there's a landscape requirement for the area because it is commercial. The requirement in the corridor overlay is there's a 45-foot setback on 40th to the back of the or to the front of the property. What they've proposed here is that they remove that 45-foot setback and actually bring it back to 20 feet and provide a landscape buffer. And within that landscape buffer, then they do not have parking that would face 40th. It would be just the building and landscaping. So their proposed alternative, they believe, is better than having a parking lot facing 40th. So those are kind of the caveats that would make this PUD, rather than just going straight zoning to an office park or a light commercial. As I stated, Planning Commission reviewed this in May. Staff has had a lot of discussion on this over the past few months in terms of the infrastructure. And so tonight we're bringing forward the PUD amendment for you to review. The Planning Commission's recommendation for approval comes back from May 12, 2020, includes all the recommendations provided in the staff report 1 through 7. 8 and 9 are those that I referred to on lighting and the commercial office park standards. Within the packet, I provided for you a little bit of a format of how this is going to lay out, but what we'll really use as we permit any building in there is the 40th Avenue Office Park PUD standards. In there, they're required to meet parking, landscaping, yard requirements, and then we also have a list of uses there. So I'm available for any questions on this. Applicant is available as well. This would be very similar to the Oak Ridge Office Park development that is near Cashwise, so.
Thank you, Mr. Solberg. Questions from the commission? When you refer to a buffer on 40th Avenue South, and I know that you show that there's some trees there. Is the buffer raised? Is it, we've had this discussion on some other developments. Just out of curiosity, just asking the question. I'm not recommending it, I'm just asking.
Yeah. So oftentimes, when we do the berms, it's often for residential development to create a buffer from the arterial roadway. In this case, we'd be looking at a buffer to kind of create that gateway feel on 40th. That's why the corridor overlays were put in place, is to kind of create this gateway feel. So it's the berm is usually to protect what's on the other side of the berm. In this case, it's really just to protect the look and feel of 40th. So it's really a discretion for the planning commission or the city commission to consider. We like the 45-foot setback when there's, a need to kind of soften the road and not stare at concrete. So the thing that I like about it is that there is no parking lot right there. That's usually what is the most sort of offensive thing when you're driving down a road, is just seeing all this parking lot. So I like that. I like the fact that there's trees and the building design is a little bit better than a typical structure.
Commissioner Simmons.
Yeah, Tim, I think I like the idea that the parking lot's gonna be behind the buildings.
Yeah.
Which we've done a few of those projects, and they look very nice when you tuck them back behind, within a compound, so to speak.
Yeah.
I'd much rather allow the setback and see the trees and shrubbery out front. I think that'd be a lot better cosmetic look, if that's the word I'm thinking of.
Additional questions for Mr. Solberg?
I'll make a motion if you want one, Mayor.
Yes, please.
To approve.
Commissioner Simmons moves to approve the Westview 4th Edition. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Second by Commissioner George. Been moved and seconded to approve the Westforth 4th Edition PUD amendment and final plot approval. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Solberg. Item number 4 is a public hearing for the 2021 budget after 6 p.m. on Tuesday, September 8th, 2020. And we have 7 minutes, so we're going to move on to the next order of business, because once it's been published, we must follow that rule. Item number 5 is to approve the creation of sewer, water, storm, and street improvement for districts number 1334, approve the engineer's report, approve the plans and specifications, and authorize a bid and advertisement. Mr. Giesland. Good evening, welcome.
Thank you, Commissioners. There's a lot of material in the packet, in the agenda packet. I guess I'm really just here to answer questions. I was here at the last meeting for the petition for improvements. This is the last street within the property we own in north of the Burlington, northern and south of 12th Avenue North.
Questions for Mr. Giesland? Commissioner George.
Thank you. I had one question on it. So it looked like there were 3 businesses that'll be affected by this. Have all 3 of those been notified at this time, and are all 3 of the businesses okay with this moving forward?
There's 2 property owners. We own 2 of the 3 lots. The 3rd property owner's been notified. It's Todd Larson. He's at the meeting.
Okay.
You'd probably best ask him rather than me speak for him.
Great question, Commissioner.
Okay.
Additional questions for Mr. Giesland? Dustin Scott, City Engineer.
Thank you, Commission President Dardis, members of the Commission. One item I just wanted to point out, it's in your packet, but there is a preliminary special assessment allocation worksheet that was prepared. And so maybe to Commissioner George's question, to kind of piggyback off that, the other property owner, I believe, right now has an estimated special assessment over $200,000 for this particular project. And so my understanding is that Mr. Giesland has reached out in a manner, or several I tried phone calls and written notifications. But again, just wanted the commission to certainly understand that, we are not going through, a resolution of necessity process where there's gonna be a formal chance to protest. And, as Mr. Giesland, has stated before, he owns the majority of the property anyway. But I just want the commission to understand that the other property owner is looking at about it looks like about $250,000 assessment.
He's here, right?
That's what Mr. Giesland said. Thank you, Mr. Scott.
Could he come up and just
Commissioner
state,
George?
sorry, could he come up and just state that he's okay with that, since he's here?
I'd just add one thing, and that's that, he received the full engineer's report, so he's received everything
Thank
that you have.
Is the gentleman that Mr. Giesland is referring to, are you in the room? Hi. Please come up and, if you'd be so kind as to introduce yourself to us.
My name's Todd Larson, and I own the property at 825 Fifth Street Northeast.
With regard to, Mr. Scott and his sharing with us that it's to be a $200,000 to $250,000 assessment, how do you feel about that?
I feel like it'd be a very good idea.
You're all in favor of this?
I'm in favor of the project.
Thank you for joining us this evening. Have a good evening. Any additional questions for Mr. Giesland?
No?
Okay, what's your pleasure?
I'd make a motion to approve.
Commissioner George moves to approve the creation of Sewer, Water, Storm, and Street Improvement District Number 1334, and approve the engineer's report, and approve the plans and specifications, and authorize a bid and advertisement. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Olson. Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Simmons?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, because we do have the public watching us, and they're probably going, what the heck are they doing here? We should let them know that this is all be paid for by Mr. Gies and his company. This isn't something that we're assessing out to any other individuals than Mr. Larson that stood and said it was okay. I just want the public to know that, because I'm sure they're watching us right now going, what the heck are you guys doing?
Great point.
So, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'd just like to say that the Nordic Group and the development that they've done up on the north side of West Fargo have been a great community partner, and we appreciate it very much. And congratulations on your newest and then next venture. Thank you, Mr. Giesland. Item number 6. Is it 6 o'clock yet? No. Is a request for purchase of land located at 1210 10th Avenue East. Dan Fuller, Fire Chief for the City of West Fargo. Welcome, Chief.
Thank you, Commissioner President Dardis, members of the Commission. Just one quick change. It's 1201 10th Avenue. I had some fat fingers when I filled out the form, and it has been corrected, but yeah, it's 1201 10th Avenue East.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. There we go. So the project that I wanted to bring forward tonight is for purchase of land for a new fire headquarters project. Fire response services throughout the United States, we have an accreditation or a ranking process through the Insurance Service Office, ISO. It's a nationally recognized organization. It ranks fire departments based on a scale of 1 through 10, and considering response times, average response times with a 1 representing 5 minutes or less, 10 representing no fire service at all. Currently we sit with a 3 ranking. That's an improvement from a 4 ranking from the 2014 rating, and an improvement of a 5 the 4 years previous to that. To improve our responsiveness, we went back and looked to see what our average response times were throughout the city. We divided the city into 6 planning zones. Each planning zone represents approximately a 3 square mile area. We stacked up all the calls versus the total unit responses that occur in each area, and tabulated our response times. We've been doing this for the last 5 years. And I bring it up all the time so everyone knows exactly what I'm talking about. So, our goal is to bring the West Fargo Fire Department up to an ISO Class 1 rating. Most major population centers in the state are there now, Fargo, Grand Forks, Bismarck, Williston. As of 2019, again, we were 3 up from a 4. This represents the absolute best ranking that we could achieve, showing that we have the best services possible for fire and emergency services, as well as representing a drop in insurance ratings for residents of the city. We want to do this through improved response times, and this area, Planning Zone 1, that lies just to the east of First Street, north of I-94, south of Main Avenue to Fargo city limits, has a higher response time than we would like in that area. We're aiming for the NFPA 1710 standard, which is the provision of fire and emergency services, special operations, and emergency medical services to the public by career fire departments. They list a 5-minute, 20-second response time, and that's assuming that you have a fire station staffed. Our ERF, or effective response force times, that's all of our fire apparatus that comes after the first due fire truck, which today the first due fire truck is a full-time fire truck with only 4 firefighters. We need 17 on scene of a residential structure fire to meet standards, and all 17 need to be there within 9 minutes. Right now, our ERF times are in excess of 18 minutes in this area. The policy analysis on this was that purchasing this property would allow plans for construction of a new northern fire station to continue our goal of reducing the fire department's response time, decreasing loss of life, and decreasing fire loss throughout the city, improving insurance costs as well, and enhancing West Fargo's competitive edge and attracting new businesses and residents to the city. Our financial analysis here, the request is to buy the lot located at 1201 10th Avenue East. It's the agreed upon price with the sellers. It's $967,000. We've been working on a negotiated price over the last 4 months. There's some other hurdles we've had to go through to try to get to this point, especially with covenants that Menards had on the property. We've got all of that taken care of. Menards has agreed that a fire station at that location would best suit their interest as well as the city's. This project is listed in the capital improvements plan. It also is listed in the West Fargo Fire Strategic Plan for 2019 through 2023, and also in our long-range facility plan for the department. Our planning actions here, as we go forward, we look at each one of our planning zones and how many calls are coming from, or how many first due unit responses are coming from outside this planning zone. 2 reasons. Number one, if we have first due units that are in the planning zone, it reduces our overall response time, but every time a truck comes from another planning zone, it reduces their availability to affect a great response time in that planning zone. So every time a south side fire truck goes way up north to this planning zone, they're not in position for when an emergency occurs in planning zone 3 or planning zone 4 south of I-94. We look at every year what percentage of calls go into these zones. Currently, we're using the model of 35% of calls that are coming from outside that planning zone. We should have a station built and staffed. 25% we should be building design and site work, and 10% we should be looking for land. Currently, with last year's numbers, we're looking at planning zone 1 having 34.9%, so it's right on the cusp of having to have a staffed fire station to affect both great response times, maintain great response times south of the interstate, and have good response times to the north part of the interstate. Planning zone 2 is at 28.6%, and that's the area to the west of First Street to city limits. Does not include the fairgrounds, although if that area between I-94 and Main Avenue is annexed, that would greatly increase that area, that response area. And a station over there would actually be beneficial for any expansion we do on the other side of the diversion. Planning Zone 3 already has a station in place. Planning Zone 4, we should be looking for land, and we actually have been on top of that this year and have 2 suitable sites with ways to get that land either through a development or through working with the Parks District. But we do have 2 sites down near McMahon Estates. And Planning Zones 5 and 6 are all heavy industrial commercial areas that right now the call volume just does not warrant fire stations being there. This location here We looked at every available land, plot of land within Planning Zone 1, and we have to definitely give credit to Tim Solberg and his crew. The GIS department did an awesome job in doing a 4-minute drive time analysis on all of the available options. This one came out the absolute best. We can get everywhere within that red shaded area within 4 minutes. And you couple that with a 60-minute reaction, or 60-second reaction time, that gives you your five minutes for emergency medical calls and 5 minutes, 20 seconds for fires. So there is areas down near the south side of Charleswood, but the South Fire Station actually overlaps. And then this overlaps into the adjacent planning zones as well, and part of Fargo as well. It will help our mutual aid partners going forward. Our next steps here after we close on this property is to figure out what kind of funding model we want to look at, either just a regular, traditional bonding and payback, or a P3 project, a private-public partnership project. We're looking just preliminarily here that a design phase would happen next year, breaking ground in 22, finishing in 23, and then a 3-phase staffing program, because hiring all those personnel at once is going to be, number one, tough on the budget, and number two, extremely tough on our hiring. Basically anyone that would apply would get a job, and we still want it to be competitive to make sure we are providing the city with the absolute best firefighters that we can. So, with that, if there are any questions, I am open to answer them.
Questions for the chief? Commissioner George.
Can you just talk a little bit more about the financing aspect of the whole project and exactly
Yes.
where the funds are coming from?
Yep, so $967,000 is the price of the project, or just price of the land. Right now, what we have identified is capital improvement sales tax money. We did look, and that fund does have an unencumbered balance sufficient to cover the cost of the project within the next 60 days.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Chief, thank you, Mayor. Sorry about that. Explain again why we want to do this now, because I know there's a reason.
Yep.
Because of as far as the property goes, and now's the best time to purchase it, correct?
Yes, right now would be the best time to purchase it. We set the goal of 2023, being able to have some full-time firefighters on this side of town. And the time to purchase property, design, build, it gets drawn out over 36 months or longer. So right now is the best time for us to go ahead and try to make a move on this property, especially since we're looking at construction. Given the downturn throughout the rest of the country, prices for construction should be dropping down. There should be a lot of capacity for construction companies to come in and do the work for us at a relatively good rate. Other issues with the station that we're in currently, that station did go to the rural fire department, and when we made the transition last year, we knew that was going to happen. That was something that was already agreed to. That building it's a great building for what rural is going to need it for the next 20 years, but for us, when you start looking at updating HVAC, wiring, and plumbing just to bring the existing building to code, and then doing the add-on, plus the amount of room we're going to need, there's no physical way that we can make that happen.
Right.
So them holding on to that station also keeps some of the tradition alive. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Additional questions?
He answered my question. That was my question.
Perfect.
Your pleasure, Commissioners.
You need a motion I'll make the motion to approve the land purchase, the request.
Commissioner Sivens moves. Is there a second, please? Commissioner Olson seconds. It's been moved and seconded to approve the request for purchase of land located at 1201 10th Avenue East, as presented by Chief Fuller. Is there any further discussion? Is there any further discussion? I'll note that this discussion's been ongoing individually with commissioners for about a year. So it isn't as if this is all new to us this evening. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you very much.
At this time, we'll move back to item number 4. It is past 6 o'clock, and we will go into a public hearing for the 2021 budget. Before that, we'll start with, City Administrator, Mrs. Fisk, to present the budget along with Finance Director Jim Larson. And then, after their, initial presentation, we'll go into a public hearing.
Thank you, Commission President and Commissioners. Mr. Larson and I are here before you with the final budget for the City of West Fargo. As it was in the last meeting that we had for preliminary, there is a 0 mill levy increase. We have made no changes to the budget from the last time that you approved and reviewed it. So we are just here if you have questions for us.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisk. Questions from the Commissioners? I think there's several items that we maybe should talk about. And number one is the work that Mr. Larson in particular did. And we had overlaps of employees that were doing double duty, so to speak, and they weren't designated into proper areas with regard to how their costs were accounted for. And I must say that in most of those cases, they were in Public Works. And our Public Works Director, Matt Anvik, and Mr. Larson did a great job. That's one of the things that I know I was focused on and wanted to have a true accounting of what these enterprise funds or these services were costing our public, because then, of course, that has a relation to what you charge your for services in those departments. And they did an admirable job. We're in a much better place and a better understanding of what the true costs are for some of the departments. And that had not been done previously. That's one of the points I wanted to make. Other commissioners, you have anything?
Other than, I guess I like that we got it down to 0. Thank you both very much for that. I know that was a lot of hard work, a lot of frustration with all of us, Tina and Jim, so thank you so much. I know I promise not to be as tough next year, okay? Hopefully there's no pandemic. Hopefully we'll be good, so. Again, I really mean it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
One of the other items is that in the preliminary discussions, the revenue sources that the city receives from sales tax and state funds and the like, we took a very conservative approach to what those dollars might be. Actually focused on about 20% of what they were the year before. The good news is that on the latest sales tax report that the City of West Fargo received, sales tax was up 8.9% over and above a year ago for the same period in July and August. So that's a very positive indicator that, obviously months before that with the COVID and the business situation that we experienced here in our community, the numbers had fallen considerably. But we are back on track, and so that revenue source has been renewed. The state funding has not been quite as bad as what we were, again, a very conservative approach of 20%, and that's been better than that. So we're good there. Any other highlights, Commissioners, that, again, with all of the COVID-related issues going on across our country, the Commission took a hard look at a lot of the training and travel and all of those types of things, and virtually travel has been removed from the budget for this year in the sense that City Administrator Mrs. Fisk has the authority, if and things improve. She has a discretionary fund, I believe, Tina, help me, $40,000?
$20,000.
$20,000, that if there are some key seminars or the like that we might go to, that would be at her discretion and not the department heads. So, that's another thing that we were able to work hard, and when we were all trying to find ways where we might be able to find some savings that we could do. Anything else? Commissioner Jurdevich.
I'll just throw out one concern I know I've brought up before, and that is just the fact that our 9 hires that we're making in this budget are not fully funded in this budget, meaning we're staggering them out to keep the mill rate low. But it does create a hole for us when we're a year from now and we're talking about the 2022 budget.
Excellent point.
Because we won't, to add back travel in 2022 and to fully fund those salaries will absolutely mean an increase in mills unless something significant changes.
Excellent point. Thank you for refreshing my memory on that one.
Not to be the negative one about it.
Thanks.
Realtist.
Okay, thank you both. At this time, we'll go from the regular agenda and we'll move into the public hearing with regard to the 2021 budget. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to this issue?
Steve Markwart, 725 15th Avenue East.
Good evening, Mr. Markert. Welcome.
Thanks. I just taken a look what's here, and of course we got this little thing in the mail that says this is your taxes, basically. You can't discuss stuff here. I just think that there's a couple things that need to be talked about, and I've talked to several people about it, and they know, as I've talked to them, they're here. I think things we need to look at, guys, and once again, we're going back, and I'm going to come back because I know this is in the budget, probably can't be changed, but I don't think it was looked at properly. The special assessments that are being assessed on my property at 725 15th Avenue, that we're getting hit for 2 major artilleries on that property, the one at 9th and 13th Avenue, and then the Cheyenne project. And after listening and talking to people, and Bessie Scott mentioned at one point in time, we have it like within a half mile area or something like that where these are assessed onto areas of property. And being 2 artillery routes, 7th Avenue wasn't brought into place because of Maine. Because we didn't want to hit those people twice because they'd been assessed for Maine. Well, I'm more than a half mile from, if you come straight west or straight east of Cheyenne to where I live at the 700 block, I am about a little over 6/10, so I'm more than a half mile. Okay, from 13th I am, but I'm getting assessed on both of those properties, or on both of those projects. And so I think that's something, and once again, you got to look at what's there, and then what are we doing, even with things in mind, what are we spending money on that we probably shouldn't be? And one thing, and I'm not against the things that are there, but it's got to be for the good of the public, not just for a couple people. Okay? One of them is the airport, which is coming in, and how many people in West Fargo own airplanes? I don't know, I'm going to say less than 50, if there's even that. I know there's not that many airplanes out there. Okay, so now we're putting money to that. We put money to the VFW project. Once again, I have nothing against, and that was prior, but we spent $450,000 on that little park out of city money that should have probably been used for other things. And then we also put up a parking garage at Lights in Cheyenne, and who's benefiting from that? That's all coming from taxpayer dollars, guys. And that's where you guys have to be responsible to us as citizens. It's not easy. I understand that. But somebody's got to step up and say, wait a minute, what should we be doing with this money? Is this the best for it? And I don't think you guys are taking that into consideration.
Anything additional for us, Mr. Markert? Your points are valid, obviously. With regard to special assessment, that'll be forthcoming in future meetings where we'll actually roll out the policies that we're going to be having. After we're doing a citywide assessment and inquiry to the public, we're going to be rolling that out in the very near future, and we'll welcome you back at that time to talk about the special assessments, how we do the half mile, how we, all of those types of things. We're going to delineate those out. Those will be able to be, shared with the public in detail and, you know, sound practices of what we're doing, what other communities for the most part do, but what's best for West Fargo. So stay tuned for that. And so to your first point, obviously, tax dollars are tax dollars when they're collected from our public, and we need to be concerned about that. As far as this commission goes, your points are well taken. This commission inherited several of those projects, but we asked for this job, so we own it. So, and that's the approach we're gonna take, with regard to whether it's the VFW Plaza or the parking garage that you talk about. So, we appreciate your comments, we truly do.
Okay. And back to the other part about it, I was at this meeting once before, and I was told I had to go to the Special Assessments Committee. I went to the Special Assessments Committee, and they said,
Come back.
guess what?
Yeah.
We can't do anything about it, you need to go to and Mr. Jervig was at that meeting last week or 2 weeks ago. Did they not say, come to the meeting tonight and at least bring it up, and then come back again on October 5th? But by October 5th, I was told it would be too late because everything would already be in place, and they couldn't do anything about it. And I was told that at that meeting, was it 2 weeks ago when the meeting was here? You guys were there?
2 weeks ago.
So,
Mr. Shockley.
thank you, Mr. Commission President. Just to clarify, you have a special assessment that's pending. That will be coming before the City Commission on October 5th. And just as a matter of fairness, because there's other people within the district, it's probably not appropriate to talk about that specific special assessment district until the public hearing. And so it's important distinction tonight is regarding the general tax levy opposed to a special assessment hearing. At the special assessment hearing, anybody that's within the district can come and protest. The commission does have the power to act on that district, and that's why it's probably not appropriate for them to act.
I'm just saying, but I was told that to come to this meeting, then the October 5th.
Well,
that was by the Special Assessment Committee.
you have my apologies for that if there's misunderstanding or that was told to you incorrectly. So if you have additional comments, please keep them with regard to the budget. October 5th, we'll welcome you back.
Okay. And once again, like I said, I think you have to look at what we're spending our money on. Is it the right thing?
Thank you, sir. Commissioner George has a point.
Yeah, I just want to say something quick. When it comes to specials, I know we said not to comment on that, but I just want to say I agree with you 100%. And that's part of the reason I ran and that I'm up here is I think how they're special assessing, especially those main arterials, is completely wrong. And that the certain neighborhoods that are getting hit for those, I don't agree with it either. I do think we need to work on that. And that's why earlier tonight when I asked those two gentlemen if they were okay with getting those specials before we approved it, you know, I don't like our system either. And I think that's something we really need to work on. As far as your other points, the airport, I support the airport. It's only $150,000. I think it provides a lot of value to the community, but I understand your points. With West Fargo Events and the parking garage, I do think we have some issues that, it was all approved before the majority of us were even voted in, and that is something we need to work on and discuss going forward, because I do think there's some issues there. So I appreciate what you're saying, and I agree with the majority of it.
Well, if it's good for everyone, I think it's okay. But when it's not good for everybody, I think that's an issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marquardt. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak to the 2021 budget? Yes, sir. Please state your name and address.
Yep. Dan Logering, I live at 2301 Ann Street in West Fargo.
Welcome,
I'm also
Dan.
a member of the airport board. Just like to state just a couple of things. One, the budget as shown in the budget report, all departments have an increased budget. There are a few that look like they're decreased, but they were split. All of the budgets were increased except the airports. And we are also working, we've met with a number of you individually, we're working on showing the benefits of an airport in a community. That is all I have.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for the gentleman? I was at the last airport board meeting and enjoyed it very much. Some new information came forward for me, and but they're a passionate group about their vocation and or their pleasure time activity. So, great group of West Fargo citizens. I was surprised, honestly, that, on their board, I thought that there were gonna be a lot of them that lived in rural Cass County or Harwood or whatever, and, I believe there were only 2 people that raised their hand that did not live in the city of West Fargo, so it does have a benefit for our taxpayers, so. And, I was there with Commissioner George, just for the public record. So, is there anyone else that would like to speak to the 2021 budget? I want to assure the people of West Fargo one thing. It is a budget. And as one of the commissioners that has the administrative portfolio, there have been a number of items that people have reached out to us on, and they show concerns. And there's been ongoing discussions about that, some very specific ones. We've made great headway in some of the things that, through the leadership of Tim Solberg and Matt Anvik and Jerry Boyer, I mean, all of the department heads. I'll give you an example. Mr. Anvik did a analysis on what we were hiring electricians to do work on our streetlights and those types of things. And all of the general things that go on in these, in our administrative buildings. Mr. Anvik, would you rise and tell me, your assessment is if we hired 2 electricians as city staff members, what would the savings be in a calendar year?
Jim would be able to help me with that. Our savings were, for every electrician we hired, we would probably save approximately $40,000 from what we're spending today for contractors.
Yeah, it was in excess of 6 figures. Those are the types of things that we've asked the department heads as we've moved forward in this budget process. And again, when I say we, some of those inquiries came from my fellow commissioners up here, but great leadership within the own departments looking at things. Obviously, Mr. Anvik's been with us for less than a year. You know, we've combined inspections into planning and zoning, and Mr. Solberg is now running all of that type of thing. So there's been some real efficiencies that have been created, and that's taken place during the tenure of the fellow commissioners that I have up here, and I'm very proud of that. Do we have more work to do? We absolutely do, and we'll continue to do that. Mrs. Fisk and Mr. Larson, as the gatekeepers of our financing, have been great to work with. I think that there's been occasion that they have to bite a lip or a tongue on some of our suggestions of how we can, you know, squeeze the turnip a little more. But that isn't how the public looks at it. And I understand, Mr. Marquardt, your comments, they're well taken, and appropriate, that we have a responsibility to the taxpayers of the city of West Fargo and to one another as commissioners to bring this stuff forward. And so we need to continue to do that. But it is a budget. So we can continue, we can't go up, but we can continue to take a look at these things as, you know, if in the forthcoming October 5th meeting, or if we continue to get emails from the public, we can go back and we can review that, and we can look into specifics. Because quite honestly, we've got some great, bright people in this community that are very discerning and looking over our shoulders on this and offering very, very solid advice. And we appreciate that. Keep it coming. With that being said, what is your pleasure on the 2021 budget? Thank you, Commissioner Olson. That's why he's the deputy mayor. At this point in time, we will close the public hearing and go back to the regular agenda. What is your pleasures, Commissioners?
I move we approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner George seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the 2021 budget for September 8th, 2020 for the 2021 year. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next order of business is item number 8. If you recall at the beginning of the meeting, I asked that, your indulgence to move number 7 down to 9A, so the next one is item number 8, the approve the creation of new snow emergency routes, plural. Mr. Anbig, Head of Public Works.
Excuse me for 1 second. Good evening, Commissioner President and Commissioners. I'm here for your approval tonight, for 4 new snow emergency routes. With these these snow emergency routes, 2 are, by Eastwood Elementary School. It would be 6th Street East, from 13th Avenue to, 4th Avenue, and then 10th Avenue East, 1st Street to 9th Street East. 10th Avenue East was a snow emergency route prior. It had been removed about 4 years ago, I believe. In checking and talking with the street supervisor, we were kind of unsure on the reasoning behind that at the time, on why it was removed. We've had some inquiries from the residents in that area to add that back on as a snow emergency route. Being next to a school, we felt that would be a wise thing to do, to put that back on as that snow emergency route. And then the addition of 2 snow emergency routes south of the interstate would be 12th Street West from 21st Avenue to 32nd Avenue, and then 11th Street West from 40th Avenue to 52nd Avenue. These 2 routes just gives us a little bit more coverage down in the south part of town. We don't have as many snow emergency routes down there, and it just adds 2 more routes for the residents now that it's kind of getting more developed in that area, to get in and out of their developments and to like 32nd Avenue or 40th Avenue a little bit faster. So I'm just, I guess, here for any other questions and see if we would approve the first reading. Or
Commissioners, any questions for Public Works Director, Mr. Anbig?
I do, Matt.
Commissioner Simmons?
Thank you. I'm looking from Cheyenne Street down 7th Avenue over that bridge, okay? You know what I'm referring to, the old super stopper there?
Yep.
As far as that's obviously a snow emergency route now, correct?
Correct.
What my concern is that we have no parking on the north side, and we did that quite a few years ago in reference to the church because of all the parking. It's not that, the 7th Avenue has become a major thoroughfare. It really has, and it's
Yep.
And right now, we stopped them, I think, like, maybe a block past that church, on the east side of the bridge.
Yep.
But we still allow vehicles to park continuously the rest of the block, all the way, I think it is, to 7th Street. You know where I'm referring to, Matt?
I believe so, yes.
Pardon?
Yeah, I believe
Yeah, so now, I mean, even today, when I leave or go home or come and go, that road is so busy, it's very difficult to have a vehicle parked on the north side of 7th Avenue
Yep.
and have 2 vehicles go by. And you know that every day, your trucks go through there. Are we going to, or is that part of this plan, or could it be to stop having vehicles parked there all the way continuous rather than just that block?
With that being the snow emergency route, and that was kind of the revision we did to the snow emergency ordinance a few months ago, when the mayor or the commission president declares a snow emergency, there would be no parking on that road at that time.
But that wouldn't be part of your, I don't see that as being part of your regular, I guess my point is, this winter, is that gonna be, are you gonna be able to park there or not? That's my question.
Unless there's a declared snow emergency, they will be able to.
And we'll have that all signed before.
Yeah, and it will be all signed
Snowfall.
before, yeah. And then we're kind of doing with our maintenance loans coming in.
I'm just thinking that's something we should look at actually having year-round right now, no parking. We already, like I said, we already went about a block down. We should continue on because it's so packed. I mean, that 7th Avenue heading west is a major thoroughfare. It really is.
Yeah.
There's cars all the time. And you see them weaving in and out. I mean, we should just continue that down all the way down.
And that's one thing that we're gonna shouldn't help us this winter with the creation of the maintenance zones that we're doing right now, where we can get in there on that one day. You know, there'll be no parking on that, just that one day where we can get in there, clean that out well, so then those cars can park, up against the curbs instead of it just keep shrinking in all year long with that.
I guess again, to clarify what I'm saying, even as a citizen myself, just driving down that road,
Right.
it's packed. I mean, and it's difficult when the car's coming at you, try to get through there. You gotta almost stop and let the vehicle go. It shouldn't have to be like that on Seventh Avenue.
Right.
I mean, it should be,
So, yeah, that is definitely something we could bring forward in the future as well.
okay, I would appreciate that.
Something for a future discussion,
Yep.
you bet. Commissioner Olson?
Seventh Avenue is already a snow emergency route, right?
Right, but
Yeah,
it's...
so we're just talking about the new ones tonight.
Well, you could still park there unless you actually declare a snow emergency. You can,
Right.
even when a snowstorm, you can park there.
Yeah.
So, and that makes it dangerous.
So I have a question, and it's in humor. There's no commissioners living on any of these new emergency routes, are there?
Yeah.
I don't believe so.
God, I hope not. Thank you.
I live close to one.
Oh, yeah, there you go. You didn't need to say that. Anything additional questions for Mr. Anvick? What's your pleasure?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Commissioner Jurdevig moves to approve the creation of the new snow emergency routes on the north and south side of the city. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the new creation of snow emergency routes. Is there any further discussion?
This is a
Commissioner Olson?
first reading, and then there's a second reading?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yes.
My apologies, I don't have that on my sheet.
I just caught that on page 150, that it'd be a second
don't need-
reading, so that's why I was confused.
You don't need a second reading, I don't think.
We don't need to do an ordinance?
So this would
Okay.
just be the approval. Okay.
Okay.
So it's,
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Anvick. Item number 9 is the authorize the contract for project number 2259, concrete pavement. City Engineer Dustin Scott.
Thank you, Commissioner President Dardis, and good evening, other members of the commission. Well, I'm excited to present this particular project very specifically because it is the first project where internal engineering staff has prepared a set of plans and a contract. If you give me a moment here, I'm going to pull up the information that you have so that the audience can see. So again, the agenda cover here kind of outlines this is a pavement management project that was included in our capital improvement plan. And again, my excitement is we were able to produce the construction documents internally. We did get some help from engineering to get started in terms of getting our standard details delivered over. But really, there's a several page plan set that we were able to produce without even having specialized drafters on staff, so on and so forth. So really our small team got together and coordinated this effort with Public Works. Again, being a pavement management project, there is certainly a lot of coordination with Public Works on what locations are needed. As you can see here in the agenda cover, there were 12 locations on 5 major streets identified as being in critical condition. In prior years, Public Works would go out and try to perform these repairs on their own using their budget. But the extent of some of this work, especially when it involves major arterial streets, gets to be a little beyond what is in our comfort level internally. So the idea when we were putting together our capital improvement plan was to start scheduling these on an annual basis. Our budget in the capital improvement plan, as noted here in this report, was $300,000. However, we did When we took a look at these 12 locations internally, we were hoping that our budget would be closer to 200,000, which also then is the threshold of the Century Code where we would have to go out and go through a public bidding process. If you're closer to that 200,000 range, we can go out and just solicit quotes from contractors that are choosing. So this is not a traditional go out and publicly bid. This is a matter of reaching out to the specialized contractors that can perform this work and ask them to provide quotes. Today we received 3 quotes, and at first blush, these quotes are certainly higher than our estimate. Again, as stated in here, we were hoping to be around $200,000. Our lowest quote at this point for the 12 locations was $280,000. And so, before proceeding, we want to take a look at possibly revising the scope and also renegotiating with that low bidder. The low bidder was Key Contracting, and so we already started some conversations today, and based on early conversations with Public Works and the contractor, possibly removing 2 of these locations and going through the contractor's prices. We think, based off their response, that we could get their contract price down to $210,000 to $215,000, a lot closer. I don't want to set a dollar amount today. What I want to ask the commission is for basically the authorization to negotiate a contract with the contractor around that $215,000 mark. Once we do have a final price negotiated, we would certainly bring the final contract back before the commission. But again, we do want to keep things moving forward, and so my recommendation would be to authorize staff to negotiate a revised scope and revise contract with Key Contracting, bring back the final contract at the next meeting. With that, I'll pause and open up for questions.
Questions for Mr. Scott?
Yeah.
Commissioner Olson?
You said that you're gonna remove 2 of the potential projects. Which 2 are those?
So, of the 12 sites, I'm gonna go to the map that you have in your agenda packet. I'm not sure how much of this you've reviewed, but there's 12 locations within these particular areas that are highlighted. Of the 12, there's 2 that are, in working with, or talking with Public Works today, there's 2 that could be removed. One of them is on 23rd Avenue, over by Costco, 23rd Avenue and Blue Stem. That's identified here. Let me try to zoom in a little bit. Area B here. Then there is another area located on 13th Avenue, just kind of by the park property here. It's close to the A Street intersection, noted as Area E. So those 2 locations, if we were to remove them from the project, our preliminary discussions with Key is that would bring their price down to $210,000 or so, $213,000. And what we would do is probably slate those for next year's pavement management project. Again, in our capital improvement plan, we have $300,000 programmed annually to tackle these higher profile type repairs. So again, I don't have an exact dollar amount. I want to continue that negotiation, make sure Public Works is comfortable with the 2 sites, make sure the contractor, puts something more in writing, and then get that comfort feeling, come back to the commission with the final contract. So again, tonight's recommendation is to authorize staff to continue to negotiate a contract with Key Contracting.
Commissioner Simmons?
Thank you. So I want to make sure you just said, but clarify it again. So you want the authorization to continue negotiating with the contract, but not to sign it, correct?
Correct. Yeah,
Okay,
we will.
so,
Yep.
and having said that, I would much prefer that we don't give you any number of 215,000 or whatever. You just negotiate it, because I'd prefer to pay 190,000. If we say 215,000, they're gonna assume we're okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
On
Understood.
the contrary, I'm not comfortable voting in favor of this at all if we don't have a dollar amount. So, you know, you don't like the 215. If there's a cap not to exceed 215,000, then I could find myself voting for it. If it's open-ended, with all due respect to the engineering department, it's our responsibility to authorize the money, and I can't vote for an open, I won't vote for
But
an
we're not
open-
authorizing the money, Mayor. We're just authorizing him to negotiate. He still has to come back to us and say how much it is. He can't, we're not giving him any authority to sign anything. That's why I say I'd prefer to leave that open. If we say 215, the other people are gonna say, oh, they're gonna go 215. In Realtor, we always did that. We never put a price in as a banker. You don't do that. You just say, okay, you're authorized to do so much, you know, and there you go, and come back to us. You're not authorized to accept it anyway,
Absolutely.
correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Doesn't really,
Yep.
it's, yeah.
And again, from a budget standpoint, I do want to point out again that we budgeted $300,000 in our capital improvement plan. And so we're certainly going to be below that.
It doesn't matter what we
But-
budgeted, Dustin, it's what we
Correct.
wanna
Yep.
pay.
Yep.
And my opinion is, that's why I say that, I'm willing to go negotiate a price the best you can, and then come back and ask us to sign off on it. But, yeah, I agree with the mayor. I wouldn't give you a vote to go and just say it's this much money, or open-ended. It's not open-ended. I mean, you still have to come back to us. That's what, if that makes sense.
Commissioner Olson?
On your write-up, it says that, if the intended budget for the project is below 200,000, which allows us to solicit quotes instead of going through public bidding. So even if it came in, let's say at the 215, would we then have to go out and actually ask for bids? Because
Well,
it'd be over 200.
Great question, Commissioner Olson. And I've spoke with, Mr. Shockley on this. In general, if there was, you know, and maybe Shockley want to take over, but our estimate was below that threshold, which allowed us to go out and solicit quotes. If the contract came in over, that doesn't require us to go out for public bidding. But I think I'd rather have Shockley explain why not specifically.
Yeah, so, great question, Commissioner Olson. So the general rule is that if the engineer has a good faith estimate that the proposed cost of the improvement is under the bid threshold and it comes back above the bid threshold, you don't need to go out for bids. As I expressed to the engineering department, my concern was, the significant difference between the engineer's estimate and the actual bid that came back. So if you were proposing tonight to accept, and I know nobody's proposing to do that, but if you were gonna accept the 89,000, I would recommend against that. So what we, kinda came to ground with was give, the engineering department one opportunity to maybe narrow up the scope a little bit, and then bring that back to the commission for further approval.
I have one more point I'd like to make, is that because of what the intended budget or what it was, the city can solicit quotes. So you went to 3 primary contractors and you solicited?
We actually solicited from 6 or 7 contractors. We only heard back from 3.
I needed to hear that. Thank you.
Yep. And again, we don't have, this hasn't been administrated like a traditional project where we have a formal engineer's estimate and a formal, well, first of all, there is no assessment district with this. This is traditionally, in the past, has been handled by Public Works through a pavement management budget. And we brought it in-house to go out and, especially given the nature of where these locations are on arterial roads, wanting to hire out contractors to do this work. One concern at this point is there are, of these 12 locations, and all 12 really do need to get addressed, but if we don't want to get up to that $300,000 number, removing 2 of them, the other 10 are still really important to get repaired this year. We don't want to go through a winter having these spots in the conditions that they are in. And so, yes, I wasn't comfortable awarding the $289,000 contract, just as Mr. Shockley alluded to, because again, it wasn't a comfort feeling. However, I do want to continue to negotiate with that low responder to see if we can come to a more tightened scope and cost so that we can get these areas repaired yet this fall.
Mrs. Fisk or Mr. Larson, this would be paid how? Where are the funds available for this project?
There's a line item of funds in the capital improvement sales tax that has the 300,000 max set aside for these types of improvements, so that's where the funds would come from.
I'm well aware of that. I wanted the public to know where you were getting the money from.
I figured you knew.
Sales tax, thank you. All right. Any additional questions for Mr. Scott?
Did we determine that thought process yet, Mayor? Do you understand?
Depends on how you word the motion,
Okay,
Commissioner.
I'll make a motion, I'll word it like this. You have the authority, Dustin, to go out and negotiate a price, but before signing anything, you need to come back and get it approved from the city commission.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner George seconds. Been moved and seconded to authorize the engineering department to negotiate a price for project number 2259, concrete pavement replacement and repair. Is there any further discussion?
Just to clarify that,
Commissioner Olson?
with this, you're still gonna remove those two projects. The negotiation would only be for 10 projects, or it would be for 12?
Well, at this point, based off initial conversations with Public Works and the contractor, we could remove 2 sites, so go from 12 sites to 10 sites, and we were looking at a cost from Key in about $213,000. We want to continue to make sure that those are the most appropriate sites to remove. Whether or not there should be others removed, we may decide, look, let's take four sites off this list and get it down even further. That's where I think we need that time. Having just received these and evaluated them at noon today, I just want some additional time and then bring back that final number for the commission, but wanted that, again, that authorization to keep progressing in that direction.
I guess my point was, if you could get all 12 down to closer to 200, you would go for all 12 then?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Scott. That was item number 9. I'll remind you that we moved number 7 to 9A. So next order of business is item number 7, as it's listed on the agenda, to approve the Water Service Cooperation Agreement for the Wilds 20th Edition. And Mr. Shockley, City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Commission President, members of the West Fargo Commission, and thank you for letting me move this in front of the 1331 district, as the two really go hand in hand. So just a brief overview. This is for the Wilds 20th Edition, and in that area that is south of 52nd, that is within the city of West Fargo. It's to the east of the diversion and to the west of Horace city limits. That is actually Casserole Water's service area. So Casserole Water provides water service in that area. There were other portions of the community that were served by Casserole Water that years ago the city of West Fargo had purchased. This is one of those areas that the city did not, because it didn't make sense from a cost perspective. The parties couldn't reach an agreement because of how much the city would be required to pay Casserole Water to serve this area. And as a result, Casserole Water and the city have to agree that Casserole Water will provide service in that area, and the city will construct the improvements, and then Casserole Water will pay for the improvements. And Casserole Water is actually the provider of water service in that area. There's certain federal law and state law that prohibits the city from just providing service in the area. And so the agreement that's in your packet is the agreement between Casserole Water and the city of West Fargo regarding that service at a very high level. As part of our new protocols for improvements, we wanted to have all of these items buttoned up before we brought forth the bids for award by the City Commission. You'll also see in there is a copy of the Improvement District Agreement, and that's the agreement that the developer has with the City of West Fargo, requesting the improvements be installed, agreeing to pay for the special assessments, and then also, if there's any type of default, they are on the hook, so to speak, legally, that we can go after them for the funds. I can answer any questions, but I just want to give a high level because it's somewhat of an odd deal where you have another entity that's providing water service within the city. This is, City of Fargo and City of Horace have the same issue where Casserole Water service areas within those areas, and so Casserole Water provides a lot of water service to the metro area.
Including my own personal household right now. Any questions for Mr. Shockley? Okay. Commissioners?
I'll make a motion to approve the Water Service Cooperation Agreement with the Wilds, 20th edition.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Moves to approve the Water Service Cooperation Agreement for the Wilds 20th edition with Casserole Water. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jurdevig. Then moved and seconded to approve the Water Service Cooperation Agreement with Casserole Water and the Wilds 20th edition. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Shockley. Item number 10, award a contract for sewer, water, storm, and street improvement district number 1331 to Dakota Underground. City Engineer Dustin Scott.
Thank you again, Commission President Dardis and members of the Commission. So, same area. This is the Wilds development south of 52nd Avenue. And as Mr. Shockley alluded to, we do have now all of our agreements in place. We are ready to move the bidding forward. We opened bids. It was a virtual bid opening on August 27th. The low bidder was Dakota Underground. And at this point, I am recommending awarding them the contract in the amount of $3,534,738.75. As you can see in the agenda packet, underneath the additional information, you can see the dates at which various actions were taken by the City Commission in the past. Again, this is a continued development south of 52nd. So with that, I'll pause and answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Questions for Mr. Scott? Okay, hearing none. Thoughts, Commissioners?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Commissioner Jurdevig moves. Is there a second, please? Second. Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to award the contract for sewer, water, storm, and street improvement for Street Improvement District number 1331 to Dakota Underground for the total price of $3,534,738.75. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Scott. Next order of business is item number 11, to approve the task order for number 34-1 for consulting service relating to Improvement District number 1332, Westview 4th Edition. Mr. Scott.
And thank you again, Commission President Dardis, members of the Commission. So this item was earlier tonight, presented by Mr. Solberg regarding the final plat approval. Tonight, and also in our consent agenda, there was a motion to authorize the ad for bids. This particular item here now is to get a task order in place in accordance with our master service agreement with Moore Engineering to perform the design and construction administration services as is typical with a project like this. I will, again, point out that underneath the additional information section, there are prior commission actions. As you see here, the last bullet, September 8th tonight, approved plans and specs and authorized ad for bids. That was done at the, during the consent agenda approval. Going down to the task order itself, and the dollar amount. So the total estimated compensation under the task order is $132,000, or $132,150. And that is based on additional services in the amount of $20,500 and the 11% of construction, which again, the number here, this $111,000, is based on the current construction estimate. As we've discussed in the past, that 11% is always based on the final construction dollar amount. So if the construction price ends up significantly lower, this particular fee changes in that same direction. So again, recommendation is to authorize this task order in the amount of $132,150. With that, I will answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Questions for Mr. Scott? All the costs being incurred on here is going to be assessed to the property owner, is that correct? Nobody else in the neighborhood, so to speak?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner President Dartis. Great question. Yes, just as a reminder, this particular assessment district encompasses just this Westview 4th Edition plat. So, one property owner, the developer, who I believe is also in the audience.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Additional questions for Mr. Scott?
I'll make a motion to approve the task order.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the task order number 34-1 for consulting services relating to the Improvement District number 1332, Westview 4th Edition. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next order of business is item number 12, and that's to explain a plan to use the 2020 professional development funds for an IDI assessment. City Administrator Tina Fisk.
Good evening, Commission President and Commissioners. At the prior meeting, I believe it was just a prior meeting, Leticia Hellerud was here along with Melissa, our Communications Director, and put forward a plan of different types of training and different things we can do for an IDI assessment is basically what it was. You tasked us to go back and see what it would cost to just have the department head level individuals go through this process and see what the process actually brings out, and if we're impressed with the process, and just before we make a big investment and put everybody through the same teachings. So what we're asking tonight is for 18 employees to do the IDI, and the follow-up assessments would cost approximately $5,400. And given the state of COVID and the fact that nobody has been traveling and everything's been a webinar, we have a considerable amount of excess professional development funds left in all of the budgets. And so since it's such a small cost, I'm back giving you the amount that you had asked from Commissioner Jaravig and asking you to just allow us to just proceed now and use the funds that we have available in the budget to cover just those 18, and then we'll bring you back a report before we would go any further.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisk.
Yep.
Additional questions for Mrs. Fisk?
I'd make a motion to approve. Well, unless...
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna make a comment.
Please.
Okay.
Commissioner George.
So, this is one where honestly, originally, I look at West Fargo, and to me, I think, oh, we don't have an issue with racism, we're a pretty open culture, but over the weekend, I spent a couple of hours talking with a mixed-race couple, and it was a really eye-opening, enlightening experience, because in speaking with them and their personal experiences, it was really different than what I see as an outside person. And Commissioner Jurdevig actually mentioned something at one of the previous meetings. He's like, look at us, we're not diverse, we don't understand what they're experiencing. I think he was right on. Until you are in their shoes and live their life, you don't understand. And so, when, you know, as far as the financial part, you talk about we have plenty of money in the professional development budget. I do think this is an area we can improve on, and I think it's a good use of funds, so I support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner George, for your comments. Anyone else? I too had that same experience, both with some Hispanic folks in our community as well as some black folks in our community. Although they think our community is terrific, we can improve, and that's why I've been an advocate to move this forward. Anyone else? We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Commissioner.
you, Ms. Richard Forrest, for going back and taking another look and review on this with regard to the department head level employees. Item number 13 is a construction report. City Engineer Dustin Scott.
Not a lot to report on this evening, Commissioner President Dardis. I can answer any questions, though.
Attaboy, you're my new favorite.
I do have a question.
Oh, there we go. Commissioner Olson has a question.
How'd the project go over on First Avenue East? Over by,
Vistos.
Oh, sure.
Vistos, yes.
I would defer that question to our Public Works Director.
Mrs. Parkhouse's area over there.
I was out there on Friday, and I thought it turned out very well. But again, I'm gonna defer to our Public Works Director.
Thank you, Commissioner, and Commissioner President. I guess what they're referring to is the First Avenue East, just east of 9th Street. It's an alley that was there. We had the mobile home community drives through there, and there's an apartment building there and a few homeowners. That's probably one of our highest traffic alleys in the city, and there's quite a few complaints on it just because of the nature of a gravel alley. It's kind of hard to do. With the complaints we were getting, we kind of looked at what we've been spending in maintenance costs and what would cost in the future to do it. We came out to saying that if we just went ahead and did it ourselves and paved it, we would probably get the payback in about 3 years for what we put in maintenance costs. So I kind of tasked our street department to go ahead and do that. They cut it down and did it in 4 days, paved it with. We don't have the perfect paver for it, but what we did have, the crews did a really great job, and so far we've had nothing but positive comments on it.
Thank you, Mr. Anvic.
Thank you.
I was on site today when we had some staff there doing some backfilling to the neighbors to the south, and the Public Works Director, Mr. Anvic, is right on. They did a nice job. Looks good. So, any other additional questions, Commissioners?
Well, I just want to know,
Of the construction
did you
report?
guys engineer that?
No, we did not put a set of plans together, but we did have two engineers that were out there from our staff that more or less just observed and offered comments when they needed.
Okay.
Yeah, they had it I was also there last week when they were excavating, and they excavated it, had their liner down, and started applying asphalt. So again, okay, item number 14, City Administrator's Report. Mrs. Fisk.
Before I give you my report, I know that Mr. Anvig wanted to introduce you to one of the employees that actually started right around the time of COVID, so not everybody's had the opportunity to meet him.
Oh, okay.
Good evening once again. I just wanted to take the time today to introduce Logan Jacobson, our sanitation manager. He took over for Tom Clark when Tom moved to the fire department back in March. Logan's first day was the same day that we went on quarantine. So when he was in his interview, he asked me what my training schedule was, and I jokingly told him sink or swim. Little did I know that was what was going to happen. Basically, we got his paperwork done that day, sat down for about an hour, said, good luck, see you in a few months. So I'll let Logan introduce himself.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Commission President and the Commission members. It's a pleasure to be here. Yes, I started right when COVID happened, and I just want to thank the Commission for when we didn't know exactly how things were going to be affected. You guys worked well postponing cleanup week and things like that to make it available to us to continue to do our job to the best of our ability, and we're very excited that we're able to continue forth with that coming up next week, and the commitment you guys have to make sure we're keeping the city clean.
Thank you. Please share with the commission and our citizens what transpired last week at the sanitation building.
Are you referring to what happened out at the inert landfill with
Samaritan?
Oh, yes. We were very excited that two of our members received the Samaritan Award for outstanding service in the community and life-saving procedures. There last year, Prince Bobby and Levi Dudden were operating a sanitation vehicle, and they saw a young man who had fallen off his bike, become trapped, and had an injury. They were able to stop. They were able to get out and assist that individual with first aid until the fire department also arrived on site to help with that and get that young individual back up and moving. And so two of our members, Prince and Levi, were very pleased that they were awarded the Samaritan Award for the city. It's a very high honor for them to be out and looking out for our community. We're very, very proud of them.
Both of the employees were awarded a plaque thanking them for their service, and then there's also a plaque, a permanent plaque, that will have their names inscribed on it. So it was a nice ceremony. Any questions for Logan? Good to have you with us. Welcome to West Fargo.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Tina, additional city administrators report?
Thank you, Commission President, Commissioners. I only have a couple other quick items, and then I'm going to have John explain a process that we've sent you email meeting invites on, as he can do it far better than me. I just wanted to let you know, a reminder that the North Dakota League of Cities Annual Conference, which is going to be held virtually, is September 24th and 25th, and just reach out to Emily if you want to get signed up for any of those events that are in the book, or online, just look, and she will help you out and get it all taken care of. The only other thing I wanted to inform you is that tomorrow, the Chamber Business Training Program is having a panel on developing a resilient workforce, and I will be one of the 5 panelists on there, joined by several other people that I'm quite interested to hear what they have to say, so I just wanted to let you know that.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisk. Questions for Mrs. Fisk? Thank you.
Okay, and now Mr. Shockley will speak with you about contracts and improvements.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Commission President, and thank you, Tina. Dustin and I have been working on setting up a meeting, and I think you have an invite to it. We focus a lot on special assessments and paying for a project, but one of the things that we collectively thought about was we don't focus a lot on the beginning part, the first half of how do you get to the project, how do you award a contract, what goes into a contract. And I think as part of that discussion, we view it as an opportunity to explain the process and also get some input from the commission on some policy level questions about what do you want to see in an engineer's report? How much accuracy should the engineer go into, which you think from a very high level is very simplistic, but as we go through it, you'll see there's a lot of different things that go into how you develop those cost estimates, and then we're going to talk about what kind of contracts the city wants to have for improvements. Should we go to contracts that have incentives? You know, those are sort of, we want to educate you first, and then get some policy input, put together a policy, and then eventually bring that to the commission, really on the front end of the projects, which we never talk about a lot because everybody's always interested in special assessments. But we thought it'd be really beneficial to talk about the first half of the process, and not just special assessment projects, but just projects in general. And so I think Tina had to send out an invite for the meeting.
I believe Emily was sending out those invites, and we're going to break it into 3 meetings so that we don't totally drain you and suck up too much of your time at one time, because it gets to be a lot. And then if we try and jam it all in there, then no one really feels like they got the time to ask the questions they wanted to ask. So, yes, that, you all should have notices, I believe. Nope.
There is a notice for the first meeting on the 16th. That should be in your inboxes. And as of late last week, we decided to break this into 3 sessions, and so you haven't received an invite to the other sessions yet, but that was going to be discussed at the first meeting, so.
Okay, I apologize. Sorry, Emily, didn't mean to give you a heart attack.
Any additional comments, Mrs. Fisk?
No, I do not.
At this time, we will temporarily adjourn for the purpose of going into executive session. So we stand adjourned temporarily. Yeah, Tina, West Fargo room? West Fargo room?
How you doing? Pretty good.
Probably not.